Hey folks, today I have the pleasure to host for the second time Ethan, product manager at the AI BI team. He's back. He will walk us through the amazing improvement that has been added to AI BI dashboards for the last couple months. Hi Ethan,
Hey, Yusuf, how's it going?
I'm always happy to have you. So please showcase everything you and your amazing team have built for the last couple months.
You're too kind, but happy to. Okay, let me share my screen, and then we'll get into the actual demo. So, at a high level, if you're not yet familiar with AI BI, the quick introduction is that AI BI is Databricks' native BI offering. So, there's two key products here: Dashboards and Genie. And both don't require any extra licenses. They're natively governed and secured by Unity Catalog. And Dashboards is sort of our new AI-powered approach at canonical reporting with your rows and columns of charts and so on. And then Genie is a conversational interface. And you'll see in the demo today that we're really bringing these two experiences together. So you can do a lot of the follow-up questions you traditionally had to add more charts to on a dashboard now in Genie. And we think that's a more modern and more scalable way to do BI going forward, with all the new tools that are available. And if you're wondering why should you consider AI BI as an option in your BI toolkit, well, first of all, we just wanted to make sure that their governance story was just a lot simpler than maybe if you had to go procure other tools to do BI in, right? So that means if your data is already in Databricks, your users are in Databricks, and you've set up all of your governance to Unity Catalog, there's no separate licenses to procure. Like I mentioned, there's no kind of shadow data warehouse you have to manage. Everything is done on one platform. And we find that admins, have a lot easier time managing all of that when they only have one tool to take care of. It's also good at analyzing Databricks scale data, right? So, there's no limitations on volume. You don't have to set up extracts. You don't have to purchase live query performance packs. And then lastly, I know a lot of organizations now are looking at, how can they leverage AI to be more effective. We are, I think in a unique position at Databricks to give you, a really highly powerful and accurate agent to help you do your text to SQL and analysis task. Because, unlike other tools where you kind of give them a subset of the data that you want to analyze on, Databricks can actually look at your entire platform and say, hey, like, what are the most common queries you run? What are your jobs? And all of that as context for agents to understand, for example, how you define revenue, right? Or like, how is the cadence of data being updated in your platform? Okay, so that's the preamble. And, we're going to talk about dashboards, right? So, the team has been growing, and we've done a lot of things in the past year to make dashboards kind of richer for the viewer, but also easier to build for the author. The big items that you see on top there that I'll show in a second: multi-page reporting, the ability to drill through from page to page, the ability to embed not just for your internal users, but also for completely external use cases, right? So if you have downstream partners and customers who want to put dashboards in front of, you can do that with AI BI. You can write custom calculations. So you can write a SQL query once and then do all of your aggregations as on top of that. And then you can also define themes. So look and feel really matters. And now you can set up, fonts and colors that are consistent through your whole dashboard. And the team's actually working on bumping those up to the workspace level as we speak right now. There's a longer list of items that I'll show you, but I think one of the things I wanted to do, Yusuf, today is to take a step back actually and kind of talk about the other surrounding work that we're doing in AI BI to make dashboards and Genie just more consumable and maintainable in the long run. The first thing we wanted to call out is this new experience we call Databricks One. So if you haven't heard of Databricks One, there's a good chance today you're building dashboards in Databricks and you're inviting users into the workspace. And you might be a little nervous about that, right? Because your dashboard viewer might not be somebody who should have access to Notebook. They maybe don't care what ML toolkits are, right? They're really here to just look at the dashboard you shared with them. And so paired of Databricks One is a new consumer entitlement, which means now you can invite users into Databricks and only give them consuming ability on dashboards, Genie, and apps. And they get this nice home screen. It's super user friendly. You can directly ask questions that I'll show in a second, look at your dashboards, and then move on with your day, right? And this really changes kind of perception on Databricks being, hey, like this is a pretty technical product for your data science and data engineers of the world. Now Databricks is also catering for kind of the business user who's just only here to consume insights before moving on what they actually need to do in their day. And the other thing I wanted to show is this concept of Unity Catalog business semantics. And what we mean by that is, conventionally today, pre-business semantics, you were defining and doing your data modeling within a dashboard layer. And one of the key trade-offs of that is that while it's flexible, it made it really hard to share common calculations and SQL expressions between dashboards. And that context is also kind of hard to transfer to a Genie space. And, if you're coming from a Power BI or a Tableau or another tool, you might have had a semantic layer in those tools that your dashboards and those tools shared. But, in, large organizations, typically we see that different departments have different tools and they all have their own business semantics embedded in those tools. And then as time goes on, definitions start to drift. So one team makes a tweak to what a monthly active user means, but another team doesn't pick that up in their tool. And now you're reporting on kind of slightly different dimensions and slightly different numbers. The business semantics and Unity Catalog is designed to tackle all of those issues, right? So one, it means that within a Databricks platform in Unity Catalog, you can define, your measures, your dimensions, your synonyms, your certifications, and then you can directly use them in dashboards in Genie. But we're also working on making these available in our other tools that are connected via third party as well. So the goal is, hey, let's give you guys a centralized place to manage all these semantics, and then hopefully drive more consistency in the future in your organization. Okay, so that's kind of all the slides I wanted to show. But what I figured I'd do now is actually start with Databricks 1 to show you guys what that experience looks like. So let me do this. Here is a Databricks 1 environment. So I'm a consuming only user at this point. When I come into Databricks 1, I only have, a few options to choose from because the workflow is actually pretty simple, right? I can search for dashboards. I can search for Genie spaces. I can directly ask a question. So for example, how much is revenue? And then this will actually triage and find the right Genie space to ask that. Or I can look at my common, most accessed dashboards, what's hot in my workspace. Or I can come into dashboards and get, thumbnails and this much more user-friendly presentation of what dashboards are available to me.
And I think that domains are coming very, very soon, and this will simplify life of business users because they can just choose whether they want to access assets from finance team or sales team or marketing team, and this will narrow down the assets they can view and thus find the right one quickly on DB1.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever that comes out, which is very soon, we should do another video to walk through that. And so if you imagine you've now, opened a dashboard as a Databricks 1 user, and this is intentionally zoomed in a bit so things are a little bit easier to see. As a Databricks 1 user, right, I can just come in here now and use the dashboard like I normally would. So, I have my global filters on the side here. I can filter by industry, things just like AI BI you would imagine load super quickly. Looks like we don't have a ton of aerospace opportunities in this dashboard, so I'll clear that. But I can also, hide this, right? And then come down here. I can do things like, hey, if you notice, this wasn't available a year ago. Now we have Spark clients, we have percentage change. So now we can look at, hey, we have $83,000 of active opportunities now, but a month ago we had 6,000. So we're up $6,000 in active opportunities. You can visualize trends. One thing we didn't show last time was now we have forecasting. Now it's, as easy as one click to go through a line chart and say, hey, can you forecast this out another quarter? And then, Databricks will do that for you. And with our native
AI forecast function.
forecast model. Exactly. Yeah. And to show you guys what drill through looks like, for example, if I wanted to understand, hey, just for, what are my trends and losses, I can right click here. I can say drill to trends. And because I right clicked on close opportunities, you can see that we've pre-filled here as a drill through. And then now we can look at annual revenue by stage, but now my stage only has, closed loss opportunities. So now I am looking at kind of the trends of loss opportunities over time. And then obviously that's the same here where, we have all of our regions, but we're looking at lost opportunities to revenue for closed. And now if I reset all those to default, I get all my other data points back, and then now I can continue my analysis. We've also added things like, hey, now you have waterfall charts to kind of visualize things like net cash flow changes over time. And the other things you might have noticed is we've done a lot of little tweaks to make presentation a lot nicer. So things like, hey, now you can customize the way that your x-axis labels are formatted, right? You can now conditionally color your counter visualizations. You can now bold them when they're red, for example. And there's just a lot more control and a lot more expressibility in your data like this. So from here, I actually want to jump over to our edit view to kind of show you what new things an author is not able to do. So this is edit mode. And so imagine earlier what we saw was kind of business user Ethan, and business user Ethan just came and looked at the dashboard and moved on. If you're a user, there's a lot more things you can do now, right? So I actually want to start with data modeling. So if you come into the sidebar here, so I've already done the work ahead so to show you guys what it looks like. This dashboard that you're seeing here is actually powered by a Unity catalog metric view. So when you pull that in, all you do is click add data source, and metric views are not demoted by this little ruler to show that it's a metric view, not just a normal table. And when you come in here, what you get is a set of measures you can immediately start using, like, hey, what is my total amount? What is my average probability of winning? Right, and these are defined via SQL in the metric view layer that I'll show you. But then you also get the rest of your fields, and it's as easy as, hey, like from here, if I wanted to visualize a new metric, for example, I can just drag one onto the canvas. Right, I'm already looking at my view. And then from here, I can just grab, say, a counter. And then I want to grab a value. And in here, like I have all of my pre-counted measures. And then I can look at, average probability. So that's going to run. It's going to tell me 0.81. And just to show you some of the formatting things that we've done, you can now go into format, go into custom and say, hey, this is actually a percent. Right, and I actually only want 0 decimal places. I can do all those things super easily. I can click title and I can say, hey, this is my, average opportunity. And because everything is linked to one data set, right, like I can come in here and say, hey, I actually only want to filter for the last 30 days. All my visualizations update. Well, in this case, looks like we don't actually have the last 30 days of data here. So let's go to maybe last 365. We're back to 81%, right? So this is the kind of things that you can do with just simple point and click now in dashboards. And for this reason, I can delete that, but that was just an idea to show you guys what working with metric views feel like in dashboards. Now, you look at metric views, you might be thinking, Ethan, is there an easy way to make metric views? And definitely is the answer. So there's a couple ways to do it, but one of the popular ways that we see right now are, users actually come in, and typically the data modeling starts at the dashboard level. So you might have a SQL query you want to run, you want to join a couple of tables, and you've basically ended up at this kind of state where this is a standard table. You've added custom calculations, with this button here. For example, here I have a weighted win likelihood measure, and if you click edit, you can look at the expression, and it's weighted by the amount. So you're multiplying probability by amount, every time. And then down here, you also have your regular everyday fields, right? Now, say you're happy with this data model, but you want to share this with other users. It's as simple as going to here and promoting it to a metric view. So you can hit export to metric view. What we do is we convert it to a metric view definition. So up top here, you get your SQL. Here you define your dimensions, and then down here you get your measures. And let's just say, opportunity for team, right? And then I can hit create. And what this does is one, we pull it back into the dashboard for you. So that win likelihood measure that we just talked about is now added as a canonical measure that is now kind of promoted to Unity Catalog. But you can directly start using this. And if you wanted to get a sense for kind of what that looks like in Unity Catalog, so we added it to this folder, and then let's just open up let's see. Yeah, super helpful because, a lot of times I think people start from a dashboard, they get to a point where they like the data model, and then they can promote it up to UC, govern it, right? And then from there, they can add more measures and things like that. So this is the Unity Catalog view of the same metric view that we just created. And then from here, for example, you can double check and see, okay, like even these definitions came through. And then if I wanted to edit it, I wanted to add more measures, I can do that, first via the writing straight YAML if I wanted to. But I can also use the UI, right? So I can come in here and say, actually, I want to add a measure. I can ask the assistant to do that for me, or I can write it directly from here. And then obviously these changes, as I add more measures, will be propagated back to dashboards and Genie spaces using the metric view. So this is a pattern that we really start to, recommend to users. Instead of defining a lot of your business measures locally and keeping them there in dashboards, you can really start promoting them up. And it's incredibly helpful in Genie as well, right? So you might have defined the weighted moving average in a dashboard, you promote it up to Unity Catalog, you build a Genie space off of that, and then the user comes in and goes, hey, what is my weighted moving average from the past 2 months? And then Genie will immediately know what that means and have actually the right SQL expression to calculate what you're looking to do.
And I think also something it is worth adding that I think it was hidden. I discovered by chance last time. You can also build a Genie with and add all the things you want to know, like the knowledge base and so on, and then you can just grab the ID of that Genie and then put it inside the dashboard. So people, when they enable Genie, they can use the one that you have curated for them.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Let me actually show people what you mean by that. It's a pretty cool feature.
But it's hard to find it.
We've been moving it around, but one of the things they're doing, or at least now, is making it default on, so that it becomes less of a decision an author has to make. But the way you find it today is you go into, three dots here, you go into settings, and actually this is a good sneak peek at our themes feature. So now you can, for example, define a custom theme, which is what we've done here in this dashboard, and then you can pick your different color palettes and so on. But to get back to the point, now in general, you can have this enable Genie icon. And then when you turn it on, you have two options, right? So one is you can auto-generate a Genie space, which means, hey, like based on the context of this dashboard, based on my visualizations and my calculations, auto-generate for me a conversational assistant. Or you can link an existing Genie space. In this case, this is the ID. You can just grab the URL, put it in, use it like you said. And then when you talk to Genie, you actually talk directly to that space, and there would also be a link to open it natively in your full screen mode. So actually, before we jump over it, because I'd love to show you that Genie experience, the last thing I wanted to mention, we talked about, hey, more charts, right? You have more adjustability. But the thing that we did is that, tagging and certification is now also available in dashboards. Right, so now you can tag dashboards as dashboards team, for example. You can make it certified. And, really soon, all of these will also be bubbled up into search experiences. So you can start filtering dashboards by team, only looking for certified assets. And you bet these things are going to be in Databricks 1. Right. So in addition to domains, if you have more granular things you want to organize your assets by, all of that will be available very soon. Okay. So let's publish this dashboard, and then I'll show you guys kind of what we've done with the Genie space experience here. Last time you looked at dashboards, you might remember that there might have been a Ask Genie button in the top left corner. Now we moved that to the bottom, so to make sure it's kind of always available, and kind of a little bit easier to find. And when you click Ask Genie, because we linked an existing Genie space, this actually has a lot more context that I was able to manually give it, by curating the space. And I'll show you that in a second. But for now, if I wanted to say, what was total revenue for 2023, Genie will now try to understand the question, finding the right data. And as it's thinking about it, kind of the one thing I want to highlight here, and this might be a little bit of a departure from how folks have thought about dashboards before, is, I think there are two types of dashboards that are typically built today, right? There's one that is, meant to go on the TV. It's meant to be an executive reporting interface. It might be your team's KPI tracker for the quarter. And that's a dashboard that everyone logs in and looks at maybe once a week, once a month, or maybe even every day. And for those dashboards, dashboards make a ton of sense. You're putting the insights that you need to know every time onto this predictable interface, and people come in, they get the big picture, and then maybe they have follow-up questions, but they move on, right? And that's what we call monitoring dashboards. And those are great. But there's another type that's not so great. That's what we call kind of one-off ad hoc dashboards you built to answer one person's question. So Yusuf, if you and I were working together and you were like, hey, I want to understand how things are going, in Asia for a particular product line, and I build you a dashboard, you might have only needed that for a deck you were making one time to do a report, right? But then that dashboard lives in the workspace forever. We might have
Of course.
scheduled it, forgotten about it. Right. And then somebody finds it a year down the road and starts reporting off of the same thing, but things have really changed and nobody cared to go back and verify. Right. And so, in those worlds, what we see is organizations ends up with thousands of dashboards where they really only want to keep like 50 to 100. And Genie integrated into dashboards is sort of a big bet we're making to make that easier. So now if you had a follow-up question on this dashboard, you're like, hey, I want to actually break down the specific region, or I really want to zoom in on like a particular year. Right, you can ask all those questions to Genie instead of having to rebuild a whole new dashboard, because once this interface is used, obviously it's a chat history, you can save these results, but if you don't need them anymore, they don't stay in your workspace as clutter. And obviously, like I mentioned before, you can actually open the Genie space, so that opens the full page experience, right? And now you get things like, because I'm an author, back to benchmarks and monitoring. I can come in here, I can actually look at the instructions, I can continue asking questions as well. So I hope I gave everybody like a big picture on kind of all the key improvements we made in dashboards this year. Again, going back to what I started with, it's all about kind of one, making things more consumable with Databricks 1, making your data models reusable via metric views, and then just all the bells and whistles that you'd expect from an enterprise dashboard tool, right? Like drill through, theming, now with an assistant to do Q&A, more UI configurability. Like I mentioned last time, we really do welcome feedback. We'd love to hear what folks are using dashboards for and what kind of other features they like to see. We'd love to talk to the community about that sort of thing.
That's perfect. So I guess I'm gonna see you maybe in few weeks. So you can walk us through the domain.
Absolutely.